more can you tell us about Belichick and the Patriots parting ways?
Good morning, Molly. Good morning, Stephen A. And let's
Good
bring
morning.
you the very latest of where this historic situation is at this morning. Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick met on Monday. Bill Belichick did not show up to the offices on Tuesday. They continued the meetings on Wednesday, and they mutually decided to part ways and go their own respective ways. That now leaves the New England Patriots embarking upon their first head coaching search in nearly a quarter century. Now, the man to watch here, a man who will be if not the favorite, will be Gerard Mayo on the Patriots' current coaching staff. The Patriots will not seek trade compensation for Bill. They decide to simply let him go his own way to take the high road there. So now Bill Belichick becomes a coaching free agent at a time where there currently are 7 other head coaching vacancies. But it is not just those teams that we should look at in regards to Bill Belichick. We have to look at teams that are out of the playoffs and in the playoffs and have situations where owners will look at their current head coach today and say, are we better off with the man we have in office, or are we better off going to Bill Belichick? And so the playoffs will kick off, I think, with Bill Belichick looming very quietly in the background as these games are played, and if there are any other further coaching changes that are made. But it is a new era in New England. There will be a press conference at noon today in which both Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick will attend. The Patriots will go in their direction. Bill Belichick will go in his direction. And we have a 24-hour period that has brought coaching legend news like we've never seen before. Pete Carroll, no longer the coach in Seattle. Nick Saban, Bill Belichick's close friend, no longer the coach in Alabama. And as of today, Bill Belichick no longer will be the coach of the New England Patriots.
Adam, appreciate the intel as always. When you say that Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft first started talking on Monday, did we get to this conclusion after extensive talks? Whereas, can you tell us whether or not Bill Belichick was trying to stay, or was it understood from the time that they met Monday that, look, this is what is going to happen, and let's figure the rest out?
I think both men wanted to hear what each other had to say because this is a 24-year marriage. And anytime you have a 24-year marriage, there's a lot of history that's accumulated. There's a lot of assets that's accumulated. There's a lot of feelings that are accumulated, good and bad. But my understanding is those were productive conversations. And I think that everybody assumes, okay, well, Robert Kraft was ready to make a change. I think it goes both ways. I think both sides were ready for the next chapter and ready to move on while having that healthy degree of respect for each other. And again, I don't believe those talks got contentious and angry. We've seen already this year, every year, it's a regular occurrence in the National Football League. On Sunday night, hours after they lost, the Falcons fire Arthur Smith. The next morning, the Commanders fire Ron Rivera. That wasn't going to happen in this particular case in New England because of everything that they've all been through together, all the shared history, all the accomplishments. And so I think Robert Kraft discussed what had occurred in recent seasons. Bill Belichick dissected it. They talked about what their vision would be moving forward. I think both sides recognized, like the end of any marriage, that the time had come to dissolve the relationship and for each side to go his own way. And so the Patriots now do something, like I said, that they haven't done. They have to do a coaching search. The rules are different. There's a Rooney Rule now in place. They cannot have face-to-face interviews with a coaching candidate under contract until after the divisional playoff round. The NFL's tried to slow down the hiring process this year, especially more than any other year. And so the Patriots are doing something that they haven't done. The rules are different. Bill Belichick steps into a universe that's very different. He'll get to talk to other teams. Other teams will get to talk to him. And when Tom Brady was a free agent, every team went through the exercise of determining whether Tom Brady would be a better quarterback than the quarterback that team had on its roster. And I think every team is now going to go through the exercise with the news of this morning. Are we going to be better off with Bill Belichick or the current coach that we have in office? There were huge ramifications when Brady left. There'll be huge ramifications when Belichick leaves. And again, I mentioned the Saban connection and the history. Nick Saban, 9 SEC titles, 6 national championships in Alabama. Bill Belichick in New England, 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 Super Bowl titles, 9-6, 9-6. Amazing how that works, the symmetry here between the two men. And so it's a historic time in football. It's a new era there. And now we see the fallout of it, where New England goes, where Bill Belichick goes. But I do believe, Stephen A., that they came to this together. I think it was a mutual decision.
I don't have any doubts about that. Last question for you. Nick Saban leaves, and the word we hear yesterday was retiring. Bill Belichick is leaving New England, and we're hearing parting of the ways. Are we absolutely positively sure that Bill Belichick has every intention of coaching in the near future? Or is he himself potentially contemplating retirement?
Bill Belichick is a football lifer, and my understanding is that he wants to coach. That is who he is. That is what he does. And it's hard to imagine that man doing anything else when the fall rolls around in 2024 and teams are reporting to training camp. That's what he does. He's also 15 wins away from breaking the record that Don Shula set for most wins by a coach in NFL history. And while Bill Belichick is not one about individual marks, with as much of an appreciation of history as he has, that has to mean something to him. And I think that's an additional carrot that's dangling out there, not to mention the fact he had his 2 sons, Stephen Belichick, Brian Belichick, on staff in New England. Well, he's not there in New England. Now, maybe New England will keep his 2 sons, or maybe his 2 sons will go if and where Bill goes. But I think he'd want to make sure that his family is taken care of. I think he wants to keep coaching. I think he'd like to pursue that record. I don't think he's tired of it in any way.
I'm not going to speak on whether, it was a right time or anything like that. For me, it's more about reflection and appreciation for what Coach Belichick has meant to me, not only during my football career, but my post-career as well. And, the records that Molly had posted on the screen earlier, those things will not be matched. What we've seen in 24 years in New England from Coach Belichick, we will never see in our lifetime. That's the type of excellence that he laid in that building. And I tell people this all the time. Every moment I stepped in that building in New England, it was like game day every day. Literally every player that stepped in that building, you had to be mentally and physically prepared to be in a grinder. That's the type of environment that Bill Belichick had in New England. He always made sure that everyone was uncomfortable, because we know that when you're uncomfortable, that's when the greatest growth comes about within you as a person. And so it should surprise no one. It should surprise no one the level of success that Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots had in that building because of the environment that was there. And I just want to, I told this story, I don't know if you saw, I told a story on in Get Up this morning, and just, I feel like our job is to take people where they can't go.
Behind the curtain.
Behind the curtain. Always pull the curtain back to take people. And I told a story of, everyone views Bill Belichick from the prism of how he deals with the media. But I remember Bill Belichick from, back in my early days, I think it was like 2001, Bill Belichick put an anchor in our locker room. And that anchor signified just how, from a physical standpoint, how much overweight we were as a football team, and how much dead weight we were carrying around that was keeping us as a team from getting to where we wanted to go. And specifically talking to me, during my playing career, I always had problems with my weight. So instead of reaming me, Bill Belichick went out of his way to set me up at a program at Duke University. Paid for it himself. And I was down there for 2 months. This man came down to North Carolina like multiple times to check on me to see how I was doing. Okay? Like, he didn't have to do that. But he saw, like, bro, you're a talented guy. I remember he told me, bro, you're a good player, but imagine what you would be if you were here. And not only to talk about it, but to be about it and literally invest in me as a player. That, to me, speaks volumes about the man, speaks volumes about the coach, speaks volumes about everything about the Patriot way. And so, like, I sit here today just processing, and I'm thankful for every lesson that I learned there, because I've been able to carry that not only through my playing career, but just through my life in general.
No, it's incredible.
It's a good story
Yeah.
because, again, the vantage point isn't kind of exactly what we see in that regard.
No, we would picture him to be berated.
Yeah,
get that tough love.
do this.
But yeah, to invest in you
I
and obviously
think-
believe in your talent.
There's two different ways that we have to talk about this. Number one, I do think it was right, and I do think it was time. And that's the secondary part of this conversation of just what the reality of New England has been over the past couple years. I think Coach Belichick is the greatest coach the NFL has ever seen. What Coach Belichick accomplished in New England will never be duplicated. He absolutely can be the head coach of a Super Bowl winning organization again. The two things that stand out. Number one, he was the example of if you make a mistake, you are going to pay for it, coach. He is 17-0 in the playoffs when his team wins the turnover differential. Never lost a game when his team wins turnover differential in the playoffs. You make a mistake, you are going to pay for it.
Yep.
He is the walking example of that. And then the second thing is, in the era of free agency and trying to build a roster, no one did it better when it came to finding the guys that would play with the details for the proper price. It's been tried to be duplicated and replicated. No one can. No one is going to be able to again. The way that he built rosters and the economical way, Mike Reese pointed this out, talking about a conversation that he had with Robert Kraft, and one of the reasons why he loved Coach Belichick was obviously the X's and O's, but the economic viewpoint that he had on building rosters. We're never going to see that again because we can't in today's NFL. You talked about the graphic of the accomplishments, right, that Coach Belichick had. I'm not a numbers guy in totality, but just to kind of put into more detail some of the numbers and the accomplishments. When Coach Belichick got to New England had been around for 40 years playing football, okay? 40 years. They were 37 games under 500. Never had won a championship. 24 years later, obviously the record speaks for itself, and Super Bowl championship after Super Bowl championship. During his time, the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins had 25 head coaches. Patriots had one. That is the example of staying power. The accomplishment is we're never going to see it in the NFL again. And the leadership aspect outside of the X's and O's is something that we have to sincerely appreciate because it's in a way that'll never be seen.
We were privileged as fans to witness that era between
no
Belichick
doubt.
and Brady.
Yeah.
Some of the best football that we will ever see. Obviously, you were a part of it. But that dynasty, that can never be duplicated. Which teams do you think should be most interested in Belichick? Because you heard Adam, right? There's 7 head coaching vacancies right now, but there could be other teams who are ready to make a move, teams that are even in the playoffs currently.
Well, I would tell you this. The Chargers come to mind, even though I would hope they would get Jim Harbaugh. I would tell you that. Chargers would be the first team that I would be thinking about if I'm Bill Belichick because of Justin Herbert. I would definitely think about that. I have to consider the Raiders. I'm hoping Antonio Pierce keeps that job. But if you're the Raiders, you have to consider it because it's Bill Belichick. Even though Josh McDaniels may have left the stench that you don't really want to revisit per se, and not to say that he's Bill Belichick because we know he is not. But nevertheless, I would certainly think about that if I was Bill Belichick. To me, those are the two teams that would come to mind because I'm thinking along the lines of if you're the Raiders, it's because of their mystique and what they're always going to strive to do something. But if you're the Chargers, because you've got a quarterback. I'm just looking at some of these availabilities right here. Seattle, obviously, is an option, even though I don't think that that's where he'll go. Geno Smith is not a scrub. He's proven he can play or what have you. But, again, for me, it's all about the Chargers because it's that they got a quarterback. Everybody else has, in Seattle, it's a decent quarterback. Other places, we don't know for sure as of yet. But if I'm Bill Belichick, after what I've experienced over the last 4 years without Tom Brady, the last place I'm going is to a place that does not have a definitive franchise quarterback. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, Stephen, he's 15 wins shy of Coach Shula's record. So
Yep.
while I believe he still wants to love and be a part of coaching, the record is something he wants to go chase down. One, I don't think he's going to go to the AFC just out of respect for New England and everything that he has history there. I think he's going to go to the NFC. Atlanta and Washington are the two teams that come to mind for me most because the division that Atlanta's in isn't a thoroughbred division. And then Washington, just because of his ties to the local aspect. This is the second part of the conversation, okay? This is why I thought it was the right decision. One, where he does go, he can no longer be the person picking players. As great of a coach as he is, the picking of the players is why he's no longer in New England. Since 2013, they have not re-signed a player that they have drafted in the first, second, or third round to a second contract. That's an issue. So where he goes, they better have somebody else in place picking the players. We could be honest about that and still revere him as a coach. They're 12-22 in their last 2 seasons in New England. The only teams that are in that conversation are Arizona, Chicago, and Carolina. So can he coach still? Unquestionably, yes. But I do think where he goes needs to have somebody in place that is going to be the person putting together, at least picking the people on the roster.
Damien, quickly, I'm sorry, we don't have a ton of time, but I want you to weigh in on this.
No, I think the key thing that Adam Schefter talked about was not only vacant now, but there are teams that are in the postseason that could, depending on how it all shakes out, there could possibly be openings from those teams.
Yeah.